What if the human body was capable of far more than we realize? Some people can leap 3 feet into the air without bending their knees, run for days without stopping, or survive in the harshest environments with no modern aid. These tribes have baffled scientists, thriving where others would fail. How do the Masai defy gravity with their jumps? What makes the Tarahumara's endurance unmatched? And as modernization threatens their existence, can their secrets of survival endure? Let's dive into these intriguing details. Imagine waking up in a world where the rules of human capability do not seem to apply, where people can leap into the air without bending their knees, run for days without stopping, or survive in the harshest environments on the planet without any modern technology. It sounds like something out of a legend, but these people exist, and they have been defying science for generations. Some of the most isolated tribes on Earth seem to possess abilities that stretch the limits of human biology. Scientists have spent years studying their genetics, their diets, and their ways of life, trying to uncover how they perform such extraordinary feats. Is it evolution? Is it training? Or is it something else entirely? Across the vast savannas of East Africa, a group of warriors has mesmerized the world for centuries. Known for their towering figures, brightly colored robes, and incredible strength, they are one of the most recognized tribes on the planet. But what truly sets them apart is something that defies all logic. These men jump, not just a little, but to heights that rival Olympic athletes with no training, no gym equipment, and no modern sports science. The Masai people of Kenya and Tanzania have a tradition unlike any other. In a ritual known as the Adumu, young warriors gather in a circle, chanting in deep rhythmic voices as they prepare for the ultimate test of strength. Then, without bending their knees or using their arms for momentum, they jump. And not just once, they keep jumping, higher and higher, for what seems like an impossible amount of time. Some reach heights of over 3 feet in the air, a feat that scientists have struggled to explain. Most athletes, when attempting to jump, bend their knees and use their arms to generate force. The Masai do neither, yet their vertical leap matches and sometimes even surpasses that of professional basketball players. Sports scientists have analyzed their movements, measuring muscle activity and force output, and the results are astonishing. The key, it seems, lies in the structure of their lower legs. Studies suggest that the Masai have longer and more elastic Achilles tendons than the average person. These tendons store and release energy like a spring, allowing them to propel themselves upward with minimal effort. But even with these genetic advantages, how do they develop such extreme power without weightlifting or structured training? The answer may lie in their way of life. From the time they can walk, Masai children begin herding cattle, trekking for miles across the savannah every day. They do not wear cushioned shoes, nor do they sit for long periods. Their leg muscles and tendons strengthen naturally through constant movement, adapting to a lifestyle that demands endurance and agility. And then there is their diet, high in milk, blood, and meat, packed with calcium and protein that support strong bones and muscles. Some researchers believe that the secret behind their jumping ability is not just physical, but neurological. The Masai have an intimate connection between their bodies and the environment, one that modern humans have largely lost. Their movements are not mechanical or trained. They are instinctive, honed through centuries of tradition. For the Masai, jumping is not just about physical prowess. It is a display of status, a sign of strength and health. The higher a man can jump, the more respected he is within the community. It is also believed to be a way of attracting potential wives, as height and strength are considered desirable traits. In the past, these same warriors who mastered the art of jumping also had to prove themselves by hunting lions with nothing but a spear, a practice that has since been banned. But their reputation as some of the most formidable people in Africa remains unchanged. Despite the studies and theories, there is still something almost mystical about their ability. Many visitors who attempt the Adumu quickly realize how physically demanding it is. What looks effortless when performed by the Masai leaves outsiders gasping for air within seconds. Even trained athletes struggle to replicate their jumps, leading to an even greater fascination with their natural strength. But if the Masai's ability to leap into the air seems almost supernatural, There is another tribe whose endurance levels push the boundaries of what the human body should be capable of. Deep in the remote canyons of Mexico, a group of people has turned long-distance running into something that defies belief. For the Masai, their extraordinary ability to jump is more than just a physical skill. It is woven into their identity, passed down from generation to generation. But while their strength lies in explosive power and agility, another group of people has taken human endurance to an entirely different level. In the deep canyons of northern Mexico, a tribe has turned running into something that seems almost impossible by modern standards. The Tarahumara, also known as the Raramuri, live in the remote, rugged terrain of the Copper Canyons. Unlike the Masai, whose strength is measured by their ability to leap, the Tarahumara define endurance in its purest form. These people are capable of running hundreds of miles across mountainous landscapes without stopping, showing a level of stamina that leaves even the world's best marathon runners in disbelief. The stories surrounding the Tarahumara's running abilities have almost a mythical quality. There are accounts of runners covering distances of more than 200 miles in a single stretch, often through extreme heat and unforgiving terrain. Even more astonishing is that they do this not with advanced athletic shoes, but in simple handmade sandals known as huarachis, or sometimes even barefoot. Scientists and endurance athletes have studied them for years, searching for an explanation. Some theories suggest that their unique style of running, a light-footed mid-foot strike technique, reduces impact on their joints and allows them to maintain speed for long periods without injury. Unlike modern runners who rely on cushioned shoes and a heavy heel strike, the Tarahumara's natural running style protects their knees and keeps their muscles from fatiguing too quickly. But running is not just a sport for the Tarahumara, it is a way of life. From a young age, children are accustomed to long-distance movement, often running alongside adults as they travel from one part of the canyon to another. Unlike city dwellers, who see running as exercise, the Tarahumara run because it is necessary. Whether they are hunting, delivering messages, or simply moving between villages, they do so on foot, covering distances that would be unthinkable for the average person. Their endurance has also been shaped by an ancient practice known as persistence hunting. Long before modern weapons, the Tarahumara would chase animals for miles, forcing them to run until they were too exhausted to continue. This hunting technique is one of the oldest forms of acquiring food and has been observed in only a few other cultures around the world. The idea is simple. Humans, unlike most animals, can regulate their body temperature through sweating. While prey animals eventually overheat and collapse from exhaustion, human hunters can continue running for hours. The Tarahumara have perfected this method, making them one of the last groups in the world to practice true endurance hunting. Nutrition also plays a key role in their ability to run extreme distances. Their diet consists mainly of corn, beans, squash, and a type of energy-packed drink made from fermented maize known as tesguino. Unlike the high-sugar, processed foods consumed in modern societies, their diet is simple, nutrient-dense, and designed to sustain long periods of physical exertion. Some researchers believe that this balance of carbohydrates and natural proteins contributes to their incredible stamina. In recent years, the Tarahumara have caught the attention of the long-distance running community. Ultra-marathon organizers have invited them to compete in some of the toughest races in the world, expecting modern athletes to dominate. Instead, Tarahumara runners, wearing nothing but thin sandals and traditional clothing, have stunned audiences by outrunning elite competitors with ease. Their story challenges the very foundation of what we think is possible. While the Masai's ability to jump defies conventional sports science, the Tarahumara's endurance seems to rewrite the limits of human stamina. But if endurance running is one of the most ancient human abilities, there is another skill that is even more primal, one that links humans to the natural world in a way that feels almost mythical. Deep in the wild landscapes of East Africa, an isolated group of hunter-gatherers has developed an extraordinary relationship with nature, one that scientists are still trying to understand. Unlike the Masai or the Tarahumara, who rely on cattle and farming for sustenance, the Hadza live entirely off the land, untouched by agriculture or modern food production. Their knowledge of the environment is unparalleled, but it is their unique way of finding one of the most coveted foods in nature that has baffled researchers for years. The Hadza have mastered the art of honey hunting, a skill that is both dangerous and essential to their survival. In the arid savannas of Tanzania, beehives are hidden high in trees, often concealed within thick branches or deep inside hollow trunks. Most people would struggle to find them, but the Hadza have an unlikely ally, a bird that leads them straight to the prize. The greater honey guide, a small unassuming bird, has formed an unusual bond with the Hadza. When a Hadza hunter sets out to find honey, he calls out in a distinct whistle. If the bird hears the sound, it responds, leading the way toward a hidden beehive. It flutters from tree to tree, pausing briefly as if to check if the hunter is following. This back-and-forth exchange continues until they arrive at the hive, where the hunter uses smoke to calm the bees before extracting the honey. What makes this relationship so remarkable is that it is one of the only known examples of true cooperation between wild animals and humans. The bird does not simply help out of instinct. It relies on humans to open the hive, allowing it to feed on the beeswax left behind. This mutual dependence has existed for generations, yet scientists still do not fully understand how the bird knows to guide humans or why it responds specifically to the Hadza's calls. The Hadza's ability to navigate their environment is not limited to honey hunting. They have an almost encyclopedic knowledge of the land, able to identify hundreds of edible plants, track animals with astonishing precision, and survive in one of the most challenging ecosystems on Earth. Their bodies, like those of the Masai and the Tarahumara, have adapted to their environment in ways that seem almost superhuman. But their most remarkable trait may not be their physical abilities, it may be their health. Despite having no access to modern medicine, the Hadza are among the healthiest people ever studied. Researchers examining their gut microbiomes have found that they contain a far more diverse range of bacteria than the average person living in a modern society. This diversity is believed to play a crucial role in digestion, immunity, and overall health. Unlike people in developed nations who often suffer from obesity, diabetes, and autoimmune diseases, the Hadza show almost no signs of these conditions. Their diet, high in fiber and rich in wild foods, supports this balance. Unlike processed foods that strip away essential nutrients, the Hadza's meals are packed with natural enzymes and minerals that have been largely lost in industrialized diets. Some researchers believe that studying their lifestyle could hold the key to reversing many of the health issues seen in the modern world. The Hadza are one of the last true hunter-gatherer societies left on Earth, living much as humans did tens of thousands of years ago. But as the modern world encroaches, their way of life is under threat. With each passing year, more of their land is taken for agriculture, and their ancient practices are slowly disappearing. As fascinating as the Hadza's survival skills are, they are not the only tribe that has rejected modern civilization. On a remote island in the Indian Ocean, an even more mysterious group of people has managed to remain completely cut off from the outside world, defending their way of life with unmatched hostility. For the Hadza, survival is an intricate dance with nature, perfected over thousands of years. Their ability to track, hunt, and even communicate with birds has kept them thriving in an unforgiving environment where most modern humans would struggle to last a single day. But as remarkable as their skills are, their way of life is still connected to the world beyond them. They have neighbors, they encounter outsiders, and they sometimes engage in trade. There is another group of people, however, who have taken isolation to an entirely different level. They have no connection to the modern world, no trade, no interaction, and no outside influence. They are the last truly uncontacted tribe on the planet, and they have made one thing clear: outsiders are not welcome. Deep in the Bay of Bengal, surrounded by the turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean, lies a tiny, forested island no larger than a small city. To most, it appears like any other untouched paradise, a place of beauty and tranquility. But for those who know what lies beyond the shoreline, it is something entirely different. This is North Sentinel Island, home to a people so fiercely protective of their world that they will kill anyone who tries to enter it. The Sentinelese are one of the most mysterious tribes on Earth. Unlike the Hadza or the Masai, whose cultures and traditions have been studied in detail, almost nothing is known about the Sentinelese. No one knows how many of them exist, what language they speak, or even what name they call themselves. Their way of life is a complete mystery, hidden behind an impenetrable wall of isolation. What little is known about them comes from rare encounters, most of which have ended in violence. Every attempt to make contact has been met with hostility, with arrows fired at helicopters, spears thrown at boats, and any intruder immediately driven away. The Indian government, recognizing the danger posed to both the Sentinelese and to outsiders, has declared the island completely off-limits. But why are they so hostile? What could have led them to reject the modern world so completely? The answer may lie in history. In the late 1800s, a British colonial expedition led by Maurice Vidal Portman arrived on North Sentinel Island. Curious about the people living there, the expedition kidnapped several Sentinelese, taking them to the British settlement on a neighboring island. Within days, the captives fell gravely ill. The British quickly realized that the Sentinelese had no immunity to even the most common diseases, and fearing they had made a terrible mistake, released the survivors back onto their island. To the Sentinelese, this act must have seemed like an attack. Since then, they have fought fiercely to keep outsiders away, viewing any attempt at contact as a direct threat. And they are not wrong. Similar island tribes in the Andaman region were wiped out after exposure to modern diseases, their populations reduced to near extinction. The Sentinelese have managed to avoid this fate only because they have remained completely isolated. Even in recent history, their hostility has been unwavering. In 1991, an Indian anthropologist named Triloknath Pandit attempted to make peaceful contact, bringing gifts of coconuts and metal tools. For a moment, it seemed like progress had been made. The Sentinelese cautiously accepted the gifts, even appearing to tolerate the visitors. But the moment the anthropologist stepped too close, the mood shifted. Arrows flew through the air and the team was forced to retreat. It was a clear warning. Perhaps the most well-known encounter happened in 2018, when an American missionary, John Allen Chow, attempted to visit the island. His goal was to introduce Christianity to the Sentinelese, despite repeated warnings from locals and authorities. He hired fishermen to take him close to the island and made multiple attempts to land on its shores. He was shot at with arrows, yet he kept returning. On his final attempt, he did not make it back. His body was later seen on the beach, and attempts to recover it were abandoned for fear of provoking another attack. This tragic event confirmed what had been known for centuries. The Sentinelese do not want contact. Their violent reactions are not acts of senseless aggression, but rather a means of survival. To them, every outsider represents a threat, whether from past colonial violence or the risk of disease that could wipe them out. But how have they survived for so long without any outside influence? Based on aerial observations, the Sentinelese appear to be skilled hunter-gatherers, much like the Hadza. They rely on fishing, hunting, and foraging using tools made from wood, stone, and metal salvaged from shipwrecks. They build small temporary shelters but leave little trace of permanent structures. Unlike other indigenous groups, they have never been observed using fire, though it is unclear whether they lack the knowledge or simply prefer other methods of cooking. Their weapons, however, are anything but primitive. The arrows they use to defend their island are expertly crafted, tipped with metal scavenged from the remains of ships that have crashed on their reefs. They have even been seen sharpening their blades with techniques that suggest an advanced understanding of metallurgy. Despite their isolation, the Sentinelese seem to be thriving. Observations from afar have noted their population remains steady, with many children and young adults visible among them. Unlike some tribes that struggle to maintain their numbers, the Sentinelese appear to be in good health, suggesting that their way of life is entirely self-sufficient. Their success raises an important question. Have they been right all along? Modern society often assumes that progress and technological advancement are the keys to survival. But the Sentinelese, who have remained unchanged for thousands of years, have proven that humans can survive perfectly well without modern civilization. They do not need electricity, medicine, or even contact with the outside world. They are, in many ways, a living time capsule of an ancient way of life that has disappeared almost everywhere else on Earth. As remarkable as the Sentinelese are, they are not the only group that has rejected the modern world. In another part of the globe, people just as isolated but with an entirely different approach to survival have endured for centuries in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Instead of tropical forests and warm beaches, they have adapted to life in a frozen wasteland, where temperatures drop to extremes that would kill most humans in hours. Unlike the Sentinelese, who fight to keep the world out, this group has faced the world's most powerful empires and refused to surrender. For centuries, the Sentinelese have remained untouched by the outside world, surviving in complete isolation. Their hostility toward outsiders has ensured their survival, protecting them from disease, invasion, and cultural erasure. But while they have guarded their island with unyielding aggression, another group has managed to endure in an environment so hostile that few would dare to challenge it. Unlike the tropical forests of North Sentinel Island, this land is a frozen wilderness where survival is not just difficult, it is nearly impossible. In the remote tundras of Siberia, where temperatures can plummet to levels colder than the surface of Mars, people have thrived for generations, adapting to conditions that would send most humans into a desperate fight for survival. The Chukchi, an indigenous group native to the far east of Russia, have lived in these extreme conditions for centuries, withstanding relentless blizzards, scarce food supplies, and a land that offers no forgiveness. Unlike the Sentinelese, who are fiercely isolated by choice, the Chukchi have long been forced to defend their way of life against powerful outside forces that have tried and failed to dominate them. At first glance, it seems impossible that humans could survive in such a brutal climate. In the winter months, temperatures regularly drop to levels so low that exposed skin can freeze in seconds. The winds are merciless, sweeping across the tundra with enough force to turn the landscape into a whiteout, where even the strongest traveler can become disoriented within moments. Food sources are scarce, and yet the Chukchi not only survive here, they thrive. Their survival is built on an unbreakable connection to one animal, the reindeer. For the Chukchi, reindeer are everything. They are food, clothing, transportation, and even the foundation of their spiritual beliefs. Every part of the animal is used, its meat for sustenance, its fur for warmth, and its bones and antlers for tools. Unlike other indigenous groups who hunt reindeer as prey, the Chukchi have domesticated them, herding them across the tundra in a nomadic cycle that has remained unchanged for generations. Reindeer herding is not just a means of survival for the Chukchi, it is a way of life. Entire families move with their herds, living in portable tents made of animal skins known as yarangas. These structures, designed to withstand the extreme cold, provide shelter while allowing them to remain constantly on the move. Unlike modern societies that are tied to permanent settlements, the Chukchi understand that survival in this landscape depends on following the rhythms of nature, moving where the reindeer move, and never staying in one place for too long. Their diet is as extreme as their environment. With no access to agriculture, the Chukchi rely almost entirely on meat and fat to sustain them through the harsh winters. They consume raw reindeer liver, rich in vitamins, and drink reindeer blood, which provides essential nutrients that are impossible to obtain from plants in the frozen tundra. While modern nutritionists might question such a diet, studies have shown that the Chukchi, despite their high-fat intake, suffer from almost none of the heart disease or metabolic issues found in industrialized societies. Their bodies have adapted over generations to process these foods efficiently, proving that survival is not about following universal dietary rules, but about adapting to one's environment. But what sets the Chukchi apart even more than their endurance is their history of defiance. Unlike many indigenous groups that were overpowered by colonial expansion, the Chukchi resisted Russian conquest for over 150 years. In the 1700s, the Russian Empire launched multiple military campaigns against them, attempting to bring them under control. Each time the Chukchi fought back with relentless determination. Their knowledge of the land, their ability to endure extreme conditions, and their strategic guerrilla tactics allowed them to hold off Russian forces time and time again. Eventually, the Russian government admitted defeat, granting the Chukchi relative autonomy and allowing them to continue their traditional way of life. Even in modern times, the Chukchi have held on to their traditions despite increasing pressure from the outside world. While some have integrated into Russian society, many still maintain their nomadic lifestyle, refusing to give up the knowledge and skills that have kept them alive for centuries. In a world where modernization often comes at the cost of cultural identity, the Chukchi remain a testament to the power of resilience and adaptation. Their existence raises a question: how much of human survival is dictated by the environment, and how much is shaped by sheer willpower? The Chukchi, like the Masai, the Tarahumara, the Hadza, and the Sentinelese, have proven that humans are capable of extraordinary feats when faced with extreme conditions. Each of these tribes has mastered a different aspect of survival, whether it is the Masai's ability to jump to incredible heights, the Tarahumara's legendary endurance, the Hadza's deep understanding of the land, the Sentinelese's unwavering self-reliance, or the Chukchi's ability to conquer the cold. Despite their differences, these groups share one crucial trait: they have remained connected to their ancestral ways, refusing to abandon the knowledge that has sustained them for generations. In a world that often prioritizes convenience and technology over tradition, these people stand as living proof that the human body and mind are capable of far more than we give them credit for. But the world is changing, and even the most resilient of these tribes face new challenges. The pressures of modernization, climate change, and outside interference threaten to disrupt the delicate balance that has allowed them to survive for so long. The question is, can they continue to defy the odds, or is their way of life on the verge of disappearing forever? For centuries, these remarkable tribes have endured, each defying expectations in ways that modern science struggles to fully explain. From the Masai, who leap impossibly high with no formal training, to the Tarahumara, whose endurance makes them seem almost immune to fatigue, and the Hadza, who have maintained a direct relationship with nature in a way few humans still do. The Sentinelese, isolated and untouchable, have avoided extinction by rejecting all contact, while the Chukchi have mastered survival in one of the coldest places on Earth. Each of these groups has proven something extraordinary about the human body, how it can adapt, evolve, and even surpass what we assume are its limits. But despite their resilience, they are now facing something that no amount of physical ability can fight against: the relentless force of change. The modern world is expanding, pushing further into the lands where these people have lived unchanged for generations. Climate shifts, deforestation, industrial expansion, and the reach of globalization are threatening the very way of life that has sustained them for centuries. The question is no longer whether they can survive nature, but whether they can survive us. For the Hadza, the greatest threat is the loss of their land. The wild landscapes that have provided them with food and shelter for thousands of years are shrinking as agriculture and development move in. Once they roamed freely, relying on their knowledge of the land to find water, hunt animals, and gather food. Now their movement is restricted, their hunting grounds reduced, and their ancient lifestyle is becoming harder to maintain. Many Hadza have been forced to adapt, working for nearby farming communities, but in doing so, they risk losing the very skills that have defined their identity. The Tarahumara face a different kind of challenge. While their running ability has gained worldwide attention, attracting ultramarathon runners and researchers eager to learn their secrets, they are also facing severe threats from violence and environmental destruction. The remote canyons they call home have become battlegrounds for illegal activity, making their way of life more dangerous than ever. Deforestation and resource extraction are also pushing them out of their ancestral lands, making it harder to sustain their traditional existence. Some have moved to cities, but life in urban environments is nothing like the world they were raised in. Those who leave often struggle to adapt, caught between two worlds, one that is disappearing and one that does not fully accept them. The Chukchi, hardened by centuries of resilience, now find themselves in the middle of another crisis: climate change. The Siberian tundra is warming at an unprecedented rate, altering the migratory patterns of the reindeer they rely on for survival. Entire herds are shifting in response to the changing environment, forcing the Chukchi to adapt in ways they never had to before. The ice they once depended on is melting faster than ever, and the balance that has allowed them to thrive in their harsh world is becoming increasingly unstable. The Sentinelese remain isolated, but even they are not immune to the forces of the modern world. Despite laws protecting their island, illegal fishing boats continue to venture dangerously close to their shores. With each passing year, the risk of accidental contact grows, and the consequences could be catastrophic. A single virus introduced to their community could lead to their complete extinction, as their immune systems have never been exposed to the outside world. The greatest danger they face is not invasion. It is disease, something they cannot see, fight, or prepare for. Even the Masai, one of the most recognizable and respected tribes in Africa, are not untouched by change. Their once vast lands have been increasingly divided, fenced off for conservation projects, agriculture, and tourism. Many Masai have been displaced from their traditional grazing lands, forced to adopt new ways of life that do not align with their customs. The pressure to integrate into modern society is immense, and while some have adapted, others resist, holding on to their traditions with everything they have. The tragedy in all of this is that these people have survived the harshest conditions, adapted to the most extreme environments, and developed abilities that modern humans can only dream of. Yet it is not nature that threatens them now. It is the world that claims to be more advanced, more civilized, and more knowledgeable, yet has failed to see the value in preserving cultures that hold thousands of years of untapped wisdom about human endurance, health, and survival. But there is still hope. In recent years, there has been growing awareness about the importance of preserving indigenous knowledge. Scientists studying the Hadza's gut microbiome believe their diet holds clues to preventing modern diseases. Anthropologists examining the Tarahumara's running style are uncovering ways to prevent injuries in long-distance athletes. Conservationists working with the Masai are finding ways to protect their lands while allowing them to continue their way of life. Even the Sentinelese, despite their isolation, have remained protected thanks to efforts to ensure they are left undisturbed. The question now is whether we will allow these cultures to survive on their own terms, or if they will become just another footnote in history, a reminder of what humanity was once capable of, before it chose convenience over resilience, technology over tradition, and comfort over survival. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.